It was the 22nd of February, 1945, a stormy cold evening, taking off from Modena Airfield in Italy. Second Lieutenant Presley P. Cooper, part of the 52nd Fighter Group, was in his P-51 D Mustang with tail number 4463494. He was assigned to escort a formation of B-17 Flying Fortresses. Suddenly, over the radio, the B-17s called in a squadron of 6 Bf-109s, led by none other than Eric Alfred Hartmann, the highest scoring fighter pilot of all time. Cooper was the last Mustang left from his squadron, and although he was an ace himself, against Hartmann with 352 confirmed kills, he stood no chance. Most of the B-17 formation had already been destroyed, with a few remaining bombers very low on ammunition and heavily damaged. He was their last hope of returning home. At this stage, Cooper could have flown home with the bombers. Instead, he turns his P-51 Mustang towards the incoming Bf-109s and prepares to engage. His P-51D is fitted with the same Rolls-Royce Merlin engine being used by the British Spitfires. The Merlin had a two-stage supercharger, giving the Mustang excellent high-altitude performance. With war emergency power engaged, Cooper pushes his Merlin past 2,000 horsepower and enters a steep climb to 50,000 feet. The Bf-109s couldn't match this, as their engines were only rated up to 33,000 feet. Given the extreme odds, it was the only advantage he could achieve over the 6 German fighters who were rapidly approaching him. He spots 2 Bf-109s below him and instantly puts the P-51 into a steep dive. His Mustang nears 500 miles per hour as he opens fire with his 650 caliber heavy machine guns. He takes the tail off the first Focke-Wulf and sets ablaze the second. Now, Lieutenant Cooper puts his Mustang into an almost vertical climb, gaining back as much altitude as he could. The remaining 4 Bf-109s rapidly turn their attention to his aircraft and follow him up in the climb. Hundreds of 20mm rounds fly towards his Mustang. One round strikes and takes out a part of his right wingtip. However, as a stroke of luck, parts from his wing hits the propeller of the leading 109, piloted by Eric Hartmann. Hartmann was forced to crash land his fighter, one of 16 occasions throughout his career. Meanwhile, Cooper begins his second dive and opens fire. The fuel tanks of the 4th 109 explodes as the P-51 enters a thick cloud. By the time he emerges on the other side, he loses sight of the final 109. He reaches for the radio to check in on the B-17s, but notices that it had been destroyed during the fight. Second Lieutenant Cooper was on his own, and he couldn't call for any assistance. He checks his fuel gauge and realizes that there is a leak. There isn't enough left in the tank to make it back home. He began to understand the tricky situation that he was in. He knew that this was most likely the end for him. He takes his logbook out and makes a record, including a small note to his family, hoping that someone would find it someday. Cooper pushes the heavy nose of the crippled Mustang down one last time. Even with such critical wing damage, the Mustang accelerates quickly. Suddenly, flak begins to open up on his P-51, and he is surrounded by clouds of black smoke. A flak strike hits the Merlin engine, and the Mustang begins to lose its water. As his final act, he spots a convoy of German tanks below him. He empties what was left of his 50 cal ammunition into them. At 400 feet, Cooper bails out. However, the parachute catches on the tail of his Mustang. He was dragged to his death by the falling aircraft, crash landing near Dietingen, Germany. On the 25th of February, having questioned nearby eyewitnesses, Hartmann takes it upon himself to find Second Lieutenant Cooper's crash site. Hartmann would later write to his family and the RAF, quote, "To our gallant foe, Second Lieutenant Presley P. Cooper. On the 22nd of February, 1945, we were the last squadron of the Luftwaffe assigned to take down the remaining B-17 bombers. We believed that we had destroyed all their long-range escort fighters. However, there was one man left, alone in his P-51 Mustang. He could have gone home, but instead decided to come back and take on all 6 of our aircraft to protect his bombers. He was a formidable pilot and destroyed 4 of our latest aircraft, including mine. I considered him the greatest of all the pilots I have faced." Alongside the letter, the German pilot attaches a small hand-drawn map of his crash location. A funeral is held and 2nd Lieutenant Coopers is buried. 160 B-17 crewmen would return home that night, thanks to the heroic sacrifice of this young pilot. 2nd Lieutenant Presley Cooper would be awarded the Air Medal for single acts of heroism while participating in aerial combat. He would also receive the Purple Heart, given to service members who have greatly sacrificed themselves or paid the ultimate price. You can visit his memorial today at Dietingen, South Germany.